real quick. Just want to let y'all know I'm so glad to be here. Just want to let y'all know I'm so glad to be here, so glad to be alive. I wasn't feeling too good for a little while, so I took a couple of weeks off from doing these live streams just to get my balance back, get my mind right. But we back at it again. I'm about to hop on Insight Timer momentarily. But let me just say peace and blessings to all of y'all. Thank y'all so much to everybody who watches, everybody who sees this, everybody who hears this, everybody who enjoys this message. We appreciate it. If you like what you're hearing, do me a favor. Hit the heart button on Instagram. Hit the thumbs up button on YouTube. Share it. Tell a friend to tell a friend. We back at it. And we back at it more ferocious than ever, man. I'm about to hop on Insight Timer momentarily. But yeah, if you don't follow me on Insight Timer, follow me on Insight Timer. I just uploaded a new meditation where I played the guitar, my first guitar composition. Peace and blessings. What's going on? How you doing? About to hop on real quick. What's going on? I'm going to let y'all know what we're discussing this evening. Stick around. Hit the like button. Tell a friend to tell a friend. About to begin momentarily. And peace and blessings to everybody. Here we go. Hopping on Insight Timer now. You move my speaker out the way. Peace and blessings. What's going on, y'all? As y'all come in, just let me know how you feeling, where you at. Nicole, what's up? How you doing, Nicole? Sending some positive energy out to y'all. I'm doing good. I feel good. I'm excited. Yvette, what's up? Glad you guys are here. We're gonna get started at the 7-minute mark, but as y'all come in, just let me know how y'all feeling. I do want to let you know, and I'll probably repeat it again because I've been so proud. I've been so proud of myself. I am uploaded a meditation to Insight Timer. Glad to be back, Yvette. I'm glad to be back with you too. Yeah, I had to take a couple of weeks off, but I'm back. I feel good. But yeah, I've been telling everybody because I'm so proud of myself, like a little kid. I uploaded a new meditation to Insight Timer, and with this meditation, this is the first one where I laid down. I used my guitar, and made a guitar composition. So hopefully y'all guys dig it. It's the most simple guitar playing in the world. It ain't nothing special, but I was so proud when I did it one night. I couldn't even sleep. It was like 3 a.m. and I was in here plucking the guitar, and it took me like a week to write the actual words out because it's a guided meditation. And then it took me maybe like a week to play out the guitar, but I was so proud when I was done. It sounds so cool to me. And then I'm doing another one. The one I just did is called Letter to My Mind, which is a meditation I think you guys will enjoy. And then I got another one that I'm working on now. I'm thinking about calling it Love Spell. I might put that one up there. I might use it for something else. You never know. But I want to use it for a guided meditation. But I like it though. Hopefully, over time I get better and better at playing guitar and I can make better compositions. But for right now, I'm real proud of the little simple stuff that I'm doing. But enough about me babbling. How y'all doing? What's going on with y'all? How y'all feeling? What y'all been up to? What's going on over there? What y'all been up to? What's going on? Let me know how you been. I worked out today for the first time in a little while. My sons told me I had to lift weights. Yvette, you know what? I'm the same way. I like the fall. Like the fall is my best season. I love the fall. I like going outside and throwing on a nice sweater. It ain't freezing cold. It ain't scorching hot. You got the where I'm from, Connecticut. The leaves change color. It's real beautiful. Where I am now, you don't get as much fall foliage because it's a little bit warmer down here. But up in Connecticut, where I'm from, during the fall is beautiful. And then Halloween, like a couple days before Halloween, right before it starts to get cold, it always gets really warm, and everybody thinks we're gonna have an Indian summer. And then Halloween hits and it gets freezing cold, like it turns into winter overnight every single year. But right before that winter time hits and it starts to get a little chilly and you see the leaves change color, It's beautiful every year. And no matter how fast I'm moving, no matter how much I'm working, no matter what I'm doing, no matter what I'm doing, I always appreciate the weather changing. Adele, you know what? I miss you guys too. I missed you guys too. I wasn't feeling too good. I had some, I wasn't feeling too good, so I had to like take a little break and get some rest. I was a little burned out. I wasn't taking care of my health, and I'm one of those people I have a hard time relaxing. I get yelled at. Everybody yells at me because I have a hard time sitting still. I have a hard time relaxing, and I'm trying to grow my business, and I work a 40-hour job, and I got 2 kids, so I just keep pushing, pushing, pushing. I don't get enough sleep. I don't take time off very well. Even on my days off, I'm always moving. So I got a little burned out. So I had to take a little break, get my mind right, get my health back up to par, and now I'm back. Yeah, self-care definitely is where it's at. Definitely where it's at. But for years I've been one of those guys that just always push, push, push. And now as I'm getting older, I'm still pushing hard because, I want to attain my desired level of success. But obviously, you can't achieve nothing if you work yourself into the grave. So I got to slow it down and work smarter, not harder. In the words of the immortal Scrooge McDuck. In the words of the immortal Scrooge McDuck, I got to work smarter, not harder. Oh, and I tried when I made a guitar riff for the meditation I was doing called Love Spell, which was cool. And then I'm working out in my garage today, and I found this. It's an old bass guitar I bought. I bought this like a decade ago. With me and my friend, my boy Ant, we decided we were gonna start a rock band. And I wanted to play guitar, but he wanted to play guitar. So I ended up buying a bass instead because I'm an easygoing guy. I bought that bass and tried to learn it, but I never sat down and had time with it. But now, since I can record a little bit on my computer here, I got the acoustic guitar. I said, let me try to play the bass guitar. The bass guitar seems harder though. With the acoustic guitar, you can mess around with it and get some pretty sounds out of it, even with my limited skill level. But with the bass guitar is serious. Bass guitar don't play. You can't trick the bass guitar. With the guitar, you can trick the guitar into making some beautiful sounds for you. You come up with something real simple when you can trick the guitar to make the beautiful sounds for you. Whereas with the bass guitar, I don't know how to make that bad boy work yet. But when I figure it out, I'm gonna try to use it and compose something kind of cool. You want to hear it? You want to hear the guitar riff that I did? Can't. You gotta wait till the composition is done. Wait till I lay it. I'm gonna lay it down. I'll probably lay it down tonight. After this, if I'm wired and I'm excited, I might just write the meditation tonight and put it up. But I did put one up. I did put up one called "Letter to My Mind," where I play the guitar on that one, and it just got approved for Insight Timer. So check that one out. Hopefully you guys dig it. But like I said, I'm so proud of it. But I know it's very simple guitar playing. So if you guys play guitar, if you play an instrument, I know I'm not going to impress you. But that don't take away from the fact that I'm super proud of myself. And guess what? Oh, it's o'clock. When that's 7 o'clock, it's 7 minutes in. So 7 minutes in, that's when we start. Let's get started. Tonight we're going to talk about, this is part 4 of the series that I was working on called Maladies of the Avatars. And why did I call it Maladies of the Avatars? Because individuals who we read about in these spiritual texts, Krishna and Buddha and Moses and Jesus Christ and the goddess Aset, or who the Greeks call Isis, all of these beings, all of these stories were about enlightened spiritual beings, about examples of divinity, examples of purity, examples of love. But they were they were individuals, they were stories about humans who had to overcome obstacles, and they had to overcome mental illness in some instances. And we talked about how Moses had anxiety and imposter syndrome, and the Buddha was going through an existential depression, and Isis was dealing with PTSD. So now we're going to be talking about Jesus Christ and what he was going through. And there's an example in the Bible of Jesus Christ that shows that he was dealing with anxiety. And we know he was dealing with anxiety. How do we know he was dealing with anxiety? Because he repeatedly talks about his own death. And what I wanted to talk about, I spent the whole day trying to figure out, how am I going to break it down? How am I going to analyze it? And I started thinking about Jesus Christ and what Christ is. The idea of a Christ, a Messiah. The reason why the image of Christ or the idea of Christ at the time of his life was considered to be dangerous is because it was a new form of spiritual technology. These stories that we get in these books and these holy texts, they're spiritual technology. Our brains learn by stories. The stories get embedded into us. They become a part of how we think, become a part of our neural structure, and become a part of our biology. The stories that you learn are a way of changing you so that you can change your body and change your DNA and evolve. So when you read the stories in the Bible, that's a form of spiritual technology. Stories in the Quran, stories of the Bhagavad Gita, all of that is spiritual technology. When you talk about meditation, you read the Bhagavad Gita, there's whole chapters about yoga and the practice of yoga. They're offering spiritual technology. When you read the Per Imheru, or the Book of Coming Forth by Day, who the Westerners refer to as the Book of the Dead, there's spells in there. But what are those spells? They're chants and their intonations of certain rhythm and the use of certain sacred words and names. That's spiritual technology. What they call hika or magic is a form of spiritual technology to not only ward off evil, but to bring prosperity into your life by bringing peace to your mind and health to your body. When you read in the Bible, when it gives you a prescription of what to eat, what not to eat, that's all spiritual technology. And so Jesus Christ, the idea of a Christ, was a new form of spiritual technology. It was a new idea. Think about it. At that time, I want us to set the context. And there's a guy called Bart Ehrman. I don't know if any of you guys ever heard of Bart Ehrman. If you heard of Bart Ehrman, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't, give me a Bart Ehrman. Give me like a surprise face. Like, has anybody heard of Bart Ehrman? Probably not. But Bart Ehrman is a famous theologian. He studies early Christianity. That's his specialty. And he talks about the context of Christ, the coming of Christ, and why it was so momentous and why it was something that was new. At that particular time, they believed that a Messiah would come. But their understanding of the Messiah was that he would come and he would be an earthly ruler. He would be a man who would be born to a woman, and that he would have divine capabilities. He would have the power of God, and he would lead an earthly kingdom. That's why so many people were listening to Jesus Christ in the Bible when he said, the kingdom of heaven is nigh. The kingdom of heaven is nigh. Because they believed that he was bringing forth the kingdom of heaven to reign on earth. But instead, the theology of Christ or Christology totally changed everything, offered a whole new series of ideas. Instead of it being a kingdom of God on earth, it'd be a kingdom of God in heaven. They believed at that time, they believed that human beings would die and there would be a judgment day and there would be a great resurrection of the physical body. But Christians believe that there'll be a resurrection, but not a resurrection of a physical body, resurrection of the deterioration of the physical body and the resurrection of a spiritual body. A lot of these ideas were new. That's why a lot of times the Christians were persecuted, because they were introducing completely, totally new ideas. And it's these new ideas and the introduction of new spiritual technology that made Jesus Christ a threat. I want us to understand that. I want us to understand that. And I want us to also understand that these stories, I'm not going to talk about the story of Christ from a religious perspective. I'm not here to talk religion. I mention all the time, I don't study no religion. I don't believe in religion. I believe in spiritual tools. I believe in spiritual knowledge. I believe in spiritual science. And I want you to understand that when I talk about Christ, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about your story. I want you to apply what I'm saying in this live stream. Apply it to your own personal story. Why is the story about Jesus Christ introducing new spiritual technology and becoming a threat to other people? Why is it important? Because you're going to do that. Many of you right now are on the healing path. Many of you come from families with generational trauma. Some who are alcoholics, some who are abusive, some who use drugs. If you have an aunt or uncle who uses drugs, chances are their kids use drugs. If your mother or your father use drugs, chances are you use drugs. My father drank. So guess what I did from the age of 17 till last year? And I'm 42. So from 17 to 41, guess what I did most of the time? I drank. But then when it's time for change, we have to introduce a new set of ideas, a new set of spiritual technology. And that's when we take upon ourselves the role of Christ. And I want us to analyze and study what happened to Christ so that we can understand the significance of the story and what we ourselves are going to face and what we're going to have to deal with as individuals who are trying to become revolutionaries or purveyors of new spiritual technology. Because the process can be exhausting. and try to introduce spiritual technology to a situation that's been dormant for a long time, it's going to be exhausting. It's going to be tiring. It's going to be stressful. You're going to feel alienated. You're going to feel alone. And I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen individuals who come from dysfunctional families finally decide it's time for me to change, and their families don't like it too much. Why? Because when change takes place, because someone is introducing new spiritual technology, it is a challenge. It's seen as a threat to individuals. It's a threat to their identity. If you're an alcoholic and you drink and then I stop drinking and my life changes for the better, that's a threat to you. You got to question yourself now. I've seen that happen to me. I used to drink all the time, had no enemies. I stopped drinking and started trying to build a positive relationship with a woman. Fell in love, got married. You'll be surprised at how many people were upset about that because, and I had a friend of mine tell me he felt that me being more successful in life was, a challenge to him. We had a real serious conversation about it because he started acting very different toward me and passive aggressive towards me. Had to ask him what's going on here. Well, the fact that I was changing was he had to question his own identity and ask himself why he couldn't change. And by offering new ideas, you change what else? You change tradition. You're a threat to tradition. Tradition is something else that's a part of people's identity. So if you come from a family with a particular tradition, like for instance, I'm not religious, but I come from a family with a devout Christian tradition. That makes a lot of people in my family uncomfortable when I sit up here and you see pictures of Muslims on my wall. Every family cookout, when I say I don't eat pork, there's always somebody in the background that says, Devin's a Muslim. I'm like, no, I'm not a Muslim. I just don't eat red meat. But I'm threatening tradition. A Christian family tradition, and you see somebody like me walking around with an African dashiki on, sunglasses, and a kufi, I'm a threat to their tradition. I don't mean to be. I'm just trying to find truth. But people will see it because you're questioning tradition. And when you start questioning tradition, of course, that means you question family. And if you have a family, it's going to be a seat of power, whether it be a patriarch or a matriarch. There's going to be one person who has the power of the family. And once you start changing, that means you're questioning the family and you're questioning the patriarch. You're questioning the matriarch. You're questioning the elders. What do you mean you don't eat pork? You're insulting me because you're different from who I am. I got asked that question a lot. I got told that a lot. I didn't raise you like that. I didn't raise you to think like that. So the fact that I'm trying to change and live a different life, sometimes my mother has felt like I was questioning her. My father definitely felt like I was questioning him. People feel like it's a threat. You're threatening them. You're attacking them by changing who you are. They consider that to be a soft attack, not a direct attack. It's a soft attack. Me changing myself is a critique of how they live their life. And ultimately, by changing yourself, you change culture. And all of us are representatives of the culture. All of us. Like in that film, The Matrix, where you have individuals who are truck drivers and they work in businesses and they're teachers. Anybody who's in the Matrix can become an agent of the Matrix. Anybody. That's what culture is. All of us are representatives of the culture. We get acculturated, meaning that we all become little microcosms of the overall macrocosm of culture. And the last thing you want to do is start questioning culture because you become a marked man or a marked woman when you start doing that. And Christ is such an idea. Christ is a form of spiritual technology that is there to question everything. You read the Bible, what you constantly see is the fact that Christ was questioning everything. They came to Christ because they saw him perform a miracle on the Sabbath. And what are you doing? You perform a miracle on the Sabbath? It's forbidden to work on the Sabbath. He had to question. They questioned him about that. They questioned him about how much wine he was drinking. They questioned him about him allowing a woman to wash his feet. Everything he was doing was a soft attack on their culture. Even his confrontations with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they wasn't having it because these were individuals who were powerful in the community. And when somebody comes along and starts asking questions, they're questioning your power. So with Christ was the introduction of spiritual technology. He was a person who introduced the idea of being a son of God. Now, in the Bible, they refer to the sons of God. There's a scripture in the book of Psalms that says, the sons of God laugh with joy when God laid down the foundations of the world. There's also a scripture in the book of Psalms that says that ye are gods, right? but they're talking about angels. They're talking about a divine council. The idea of a human being a son of God incarnate, that was a whole new idea. Imagine how shocking that was, but also imagine how useful that was when Jesus Christ introduced the idea, when his disciples introduced the idea of him being the Son of God. That opened up the door for all of us. Because if he could be a son of God incarnate in human flesh, what other miracles can happen or be bestowed upon us? Can we be sons of God? I tell people all the time I'm a son of God. And I don't mean that in a narcissistic, egotistical way. I'm not crazy. But I believe that I'm the direct physical descendant of the supreme being of the universe. That's what it is to be a human. So that spiritual technology, that thought uplifts and empowers me. I used to feel like I was worthless. Now I feel like I'm the son of God. All because of the Christ concept, that spiritual technology, I'm putting it to use. Right? And also, as I mentioned, Jesus Christ was a person who introduced the idea of a resurrection of the dead into a spiritual body. That's a new idea. The idea of a kingdom of God, not only in the heavens, but on earth. It's a new idea. These are new ideas that were being brought to the table. So imagine how people would develop and change and evolve because of these new ideas. It's new ideas that change us. New ideas that plant the seeds for culture. Every culture, the seeds of every culture is new ideas. Imagine the power of that. The Christian culture is quite different from the Judeo Christian culture. I mean, from the Jewish culture. Created a whole new culture with just these new ideas. People would believe that Jesus Christ was Elias, who was a prophet from the Old Testament. Some believe that he was John the Baptist. Now, for those who don't know, John the Baptist was a cousin of Jesus Christ. He was the precursor of Christ because he was in the wilderness, walking around, barely dressed, screaming and preaching about the coming kingdom of God. And he was the one who was considered to be the harbinger of Jesus Christ. And then they killed John the Baptist. Herod, who was a patriarch at that time, had John the Baptist arrested and then had him beheaded because his girlfriend Salome requested it. So John the Baptist was dead. And when Herod heard of Jesus walking around telling the story, teaching his knowledge and giving his knowledge to people, Herod became very threatened because people kept saying that Jesus Christ was John the Baptist resurrected. And so Herod is like, well, I killed John, cut his head off. So what do you mean he's John the Baptist resurrected? I got to meet this Jesus dude. He became a marked man because of what he was speaking and what he represented. He was a threat to the culture. And so what happens whenever you come across somebody who's a threat to the culture? People want to kill the idealist so that they can kill the idea. Keep in mind, this is going to happen to us. It might not happen literally, but it's going to happen to us. How many of us in the room right now have decided that we wanted to go to our families and try to change things? Individuals who are dealing with generational trauma and the curse of generational pain. How many of us have said, no more, it stops with me, but in order for it to stop with me, I got to go back and I got to save the rest of my family. You go back and you tell your father to stop drinking. You go back and you tell your mother to stop being abusive. You go back and you tell your aunt to stop using heroin. You go back and you tell your uncle to stop sniffing cocaine. How many of us have done that? And what happens to them? What happens when we say these things to them? I've gone to my friends and told my friends, yo, you got to stop drinking. And what happens? People want to kill the idealist in order to kill the idea. Let's look at Luke chapter 22, verse 34. And I got a Bible right here. Luke 22:34. Give me one moment. And I want to read these scriptures to you because I think they're very interesting. Chapter 22, verses 3 through 4. Then entered Satan into Judas, surnamed Iscariot, being of the number of the 12. And he went his way and communed with the chief priests and captains, how he might betray him unto them. And they were glad and covenanted to give him money. And he promised and saw opportunity to betray him unto them in the absence of the multitude. So basically what happened was Judas Iscariot, who was one of Jesus' closest followers, he was a number of the 12. Jesus had many disciples, but he had 12 specific disciples who were his apostles. And with those 12 was Judas Iscariot, one of the most beloved in Christ's inner circle. And something happened within Judas. It says Satan entered into him. Now, I don't want you to think about it as literal demon possession. I don't believe in no literal devil or no literal evil spirit. What happened is that there was a transformation within him. He saw an opportunity to take his friend's life and in exchange would get money. What was his impulses? Love of tradition. Jesus was shaking things up. Jesus was a soft threat. Jesus Christ never said, I'm going to kill you. He never said, I'm going to attack you. He never said, I'll destroy you. But his presence and the way he was living his life was a soft threat to an established cultural tradition. And what happens when somebody threatens your cultural tradition when you're not ready to change? You kill the idealist. You kill the individual who thinks up the idea because you want to destroy the idea. So Judas Iscariot decided he wanted to go to the captains and the high priests of the temple and say, hey, look, I'll bring you Jesus. And he said, you'll bring him to us? That's your man. You gonna betray your man? Okay, that's cool. I don't care. I'll give you some money. Bring them here. We'll handle the rest. But Jesus Christ, if you read the story, he's constantly saying that he has to die, that his time for death is coming, that he's going to give up his life, that he's going to be betrayed. He says it constantly throughout the book of Luke. I use the book of Luke primarily as the text to draw inspiration from. I wanted to use that one. I was going to start with the Gospel of John, but the Gospel of John is so different from the rest of the Gospels. I wanted to just stick with Luke. I thought Luke was detailed enough. I wanted to rock with Luke. But Jesus Christ he accepted the fact that his time was going to come. Same thing with us. When we're going to introduce new spiritual technology to an established culture, especially a culture that specializes in generational trauma, we got to understand the fact that people are going to attack us, and we have to be the sacrifice. Now, I'm not saying you should sacrifice your well-being or your physical safety. I'm not saying sacrifice your kids. But what I'm saying is understand, people are going to target you. If you have a family that's toxic and dysfunctional, you say, let's get functional. Let's go to therapy. Let's deal with these issues. Let's address the incest that happened in the family. Let's address the violence and abuse in the family. Let's address the alcoholism in the family. You're making yourself the target. And if you want to save the rest of the family, you may have to do that. Not saying that I want you to accept tremendous amount of abuse or disrespect, but go into it understanding that you may have to make yourself the sacrifice. Let's read Luke 22:19 and 20. And I found this to be an interesting one. This is Jesus Christ at the Last Supper, talking to the apostles. Luke 22:19 and 20. Where's 19? Here we go. And he took bread and gave thanks and broke it and gave unto them, saying, this is my body, which I'm giving to you, which I'm giving for you. This do it in remembrance of me. Likewise, also the cup after supper, saying, this cup is the next testament in my blood, which is shed for you. So he knew he had to give up his body and his blood. He knew he was going to be the sacrifice. He knew that in order for him to introduce that spiritual technology to the people, that it was mandatory that he suffer. He was going to feel some pain. And he accepted that as a reality. Now, many of us, we want to change our families. We want to introduce positive thinking into the family. We want to introduce healing into the family. But if you have a culture that's based upon toxicity and sickness, or even if it's not a whole culture, what if it's just one person? What if you got one friend who you're tired of seeing hurt themselves? You got one friend who's addicted to toxic relationships. You got one friend who's addicted to abusive men. You got one friend who's addicted to abusive women. You ever had to have a conversation with somebody who you saw dying before your eyes? Let me know. In the chat, let me know. Give me a thumbs up if you ever had that conversation. I had to have that conversation. I did. I raised my hand. Raise your hand if you ever had to have that conversation with somebody. Let me know. Because I for sure did. And it's a tough conversation to have. When you have to go to somebody and you have to say, You're destroying yourself, and I love you, and I want you to stop. But they're addicted to what they're doing. And you know for a fact that it's quite possible they might flip on you. They might blame you. They might be angry at you. They might shun you. They might isolate you. They might start telling everybody how much you've changed, how you're a different person, how you're a liar, how you're fake, how you're not the same. What's your problem? They might try to turn your whole family against you. They might try to turn all your friends against you. It's a scary thing. But when you decide you want to introduce spiritual technology, you take the responsibility upon yourself. Understand that you may have to sacrifice some piece of yourself. Don't destroy yourself, but a sacrifice might have to get made. Yeah, you have to remove yourself. And that's a lot of times what you'll have to do. It's almost like giving somebody an ultimatum. Either you got to change or I got to go. And that's perfectly fine. You don't have to feel guilty about it. And people who are toxic and unhealthy, they'll try to make you feel guilty about you trying to preserve yourself. They'll make you feel like crap for you trying to walk away from a situation that's not to your benefit. And it takes a lot of strength, and I'm glad you were able to get out of it. I'm very glad you were able to get out of it because some people don't make it out. So after the whole situation, well, Jesus Christ realizes that he has to die. He goes to the Garden of Gethsemane in the Mount of Olives. And as he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, he tells his apostles to step aside for a moment while he goes to pray. He knows his time is close at hand. So he goes and he kneels down and he starts to pray. And he starts to ask God. He says to God, if it's your will, pass this cup before me, but thy will be done. What is he doing? Well, when a person is faced with death or they deal with the loss of a loved one, there's 5 stages of grief that they go through. One of the stages is bargaining. So Jesus Christ was going through the phases of mourning. He was mourning himself, understanding that he would be the sacrificial lamb in his moment so that he could move the rest of the culture and the rest of the human species forward. He understood that, but he was trying to bargain his way out of it if possible. He was grieving, and understandably so. He said, pass this cup before me. Meaning, I don't want to drink this bitter drink. This death is a bitter drink. I don't want this. Pass it before me. That's like if you want to cipher with your boys. Like when I was young, we used to have like, we used to play the trumpet and drink 40 ounces of beer. And when you start passing the beer around, right? At first, when you first crack open that big old bottle of beer, 40 ounces, it's nice and cold. You taking a swig, everybody passing it around. But from everybody touching the bottle and passing it around for like a half an hour, the beer starts to get warm, starts to get hot, starts to taste nasty. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I don't want none. Pass this cuppeth before me. I don't want no more than 40. Pass the 40 before me. That's what Jesus was doing. He was like, man, I don't want to. Pass this cup before me, but thy will be done. And he was so distraught. There's a scripture in the Bible that talks about how he's praying and his sweat became like blood. And I remember when I was a kid, I read about that scripture, and it's basically saying that that's something that happens to an individual whose blood pressure is so high from the stress and the tension that they feel in their body that they start to literally sweat blood. That's how distraught he was about what he was going to have to deal with. He was so anxious. The Son of God was actually sweating blood. Obviously, he did not want to endure what was coming his way. But he didn't run. And then he stands up and he goes to his apostles who had stepped away for a little bit. He found them asleep. And he was angry. He woke them up. He said, why are you sleeping? Wake up and pray unless temptation takes you. Why did he say this? because he wanted the disciples to stay awake. He didn't want them to become victims of weakness. He wanted them to stay awake and stay strong and stay vigilant. He didn't want them to die. He knew he was going to die. He didn't want them to die too. And he didn't want their souls to be dragged down into temptation if they run for weakness or if they suffer death. He was confused. He didn't know what was going to happen to them next. And just as he's speaking to them, guess who shows up? Main man, Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot appears and walks up to Jesus Christ and kisses him on the cheek. I told you this is a story about you. This is a story about you. Who do you know when they see you trying to introduce new spiritual technology into a toxic situation and elevate the people? Who do you know kisses you before they betray you? Because all of us have a Judas Iscariot. All of us have that one person who will use the love that we have for them to kill us. How many of you have an individual who will see you doing something positive, get close to you, kiss you, and use the love that you have as a weapon? They weaponize your affection, weaponize your love. All of us have a Judas Iscariot. You have one now, or you had one before. And if you ain't never had one before, you're gonna have one soon. Because as you evolve, this is a part of the natural spiritual cycle. The story about God and Jesus Christ, the story about Jesus Christ is a powerful story because it's a continuous story. It's always going to be true. There's always going to be a Christ sacrifice, and there's always going to be a Judas Iscariot. Always. That's a natural part of your spiritual evolution. As you become more powerful, you're gonna come face to face with your Judas, and you're gonna become face to face with your Gethsemane. This is Christ in Gethsemane. This is you in Gethsemane. This is you being betrayed. That's why the story is important, because it's giving you a warning. It's a prophecy. Prophecies are not right just once. Prophecies are always right. And I'm not saying it from a religious perspective. I'm saying it because the narrative is so powerful and so universal that it's letting you know what you're going to experience somehow, some way. And you're right. Some of us can be the Judas. You're right about that. You're right. You're 100% right. Some of us might be the Judas. Some of us have been the Judas. I hope I haven't, but you're right. It's possible that I have. You're correct. But my whole thing is, we're all going to face that Judas. Because in order for us to evolve, we got to follow in the footsteps of the Christ. That spiritual technology that's been given to us in this age, which is necessary for our evolution. Sad but true. Hopefully you'll survive your Judas when you come across him. And then when Judas arrives with a multitude of men, Peter, who loves Jesus, takes his blade and strikes out, chops off one of the people's ear. Christ says, "No, stop. Just let it happen." And he touches the man's ear and heals it. You don't see that in the other Gospels. In the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew and Mark, you don't see that. You see it in Luke. Just a little bit of trivia. Why do you see it in Luke? You see it in the book of Luke because Luke was a physician. He was a doctor. According to tradition, Luke was an apostle who was a doctor. So he's pointing out something the doctor would notice, that man's ear is healed. But after the man is healed, the apostles scatter. They go into hiding. And the crowd grabs Jesus and pulls him out of the Garden of Gethsemane. As they're pulling him out of the Garden of Gethsemane, Peter is still there, but he's keeping his distance. He's watching from afar. And they take Jesus back down to the city, to the village, and take him to this big old hall. They light a fire in the hall, and as they light the fire in the hall and people are coming in, Peter comes in, and he's standing in the back of the room watching. He don't let nobody know who he is, but he's watching. Somebody walks in, and they point to Peter, and they're like, "That's him. I saw him with Jesus. He one of them 12. And Peter's like, nah, that wasn't me. I don't know what you talk about. What you mean? Nah, I don't even know who that is up there. Who over there? Jesus? I don't even know who Jesus is." And a lady who saw him was like, "Oh, okay, all right, you good. Then somebody else walked by Peter. He do a double take. "Yo, ain't you with Jesus?" I just seen you with Jesus over there. Peter's like, no, I wasn't with Jesus. Nah, you got me mistaken. I got one of them faces, man. I look a little bit like everybody, but nah, it wasn't me. I didn't even know Jesus. Like, I heard of him, but I don't know who he is. Like, I seen him before, but I don't know who Jesus is. And the dude is like, all right, I'm gonna let you slide. Go ahead. Then somebody else sees Peter. Yo, ain't you Peter? They call you Simon, right? That's your nickname, Simon? Yeah, I know you, Simon. What's going on, you punk? I seen you with Jesus. And then Simon Peter, he gets a little bit annoyed. He's like, listen, I'm tired of y'all saying, I don't know Jesus. I don't know that dude. I never seen him before. I'm just here to see what's going on. Okay? Leave me alone. And as he's talking, he hears the sound of a rooster crow. Sun is coming up. And he remembers when Jesus spoke to him and he was telling Jesus how much he loves him. I love you. I'll never deny you. And Jesus is like, yeah, you're going to deny me 3 times before the night is over with. Before the cock crows tomorrow morning, you're going to deny me 3 times. But you love me so much. And Peter was like, nah, I love you. I will never deny you. You're my master. I love you. And then sure enough, it came to pass. He denied his master out of fear of what was going to happen. And then they walk in with Jesus, and Jesus is blindfolded. And they're beating him and mocking him. And they're saying, you're a prophet, so prophesy. You can't see us, but when I punch you in the face, tell me who was it that hit you. Bang! Now, that's important. It's important. Why is it important? They covered his eyes. They say the eyes are the windows into the soul. Jesus Christ himself said that if thine eye be single, thy whole body will be full of light. What does that mean? When he says if thine eye be single, what's a single eye? You got 2 eyes. What's the single eye? Well, there's a third eye, the pineal gland. If you look in the Bible in the book of Genesis, when Jacob meets the angel and fights with the angel and struggles with the angel, they call the place where he fought the angel pineal, because he saw God face to face. And you have a pineal gland in your mind that gets activated and the whole body is full of light. See, the Bible is full of these little clues that people don't understand. So when they covered his eyes, that was symbolic for them trying to cover his divine insight. They were trying to cover the power and the ability and the capacity of the pineal gland, the third eye, that gave him spiritual knowledge. In other words, when they cover up his eyes, that means they want him to be blind and lose his intelligence. They want him to lose the idea that made him such a threat, those ideas that made him such a cultural revolutionary. We want to get rid of that. Cover his eyes and let's beat him. There's a story that the Freemasons tell about a Mason who was his name was Hiram Abiff. Hiram Abiff was a man who was commissioned to help build the Temple of King Solomon, but he was attacked by ruffians. And they slit his throat, hit his head, cut his tongue out. Why? They had to hit his head, kill his knowledge, slit his throat, take his life, cut his tongue out so he can't speak the truth. Same thing was happening with Christ when they covered his eyes and they was beating him. It's symbolic. They have to kill the head. They cut off John the Baptist's head. Why? Because they wanted to get rid of his ideas. He was too much of a cultural threat. So you see that you constantly see the symbolism of the head and the eye and the third eye and the pineal gland in the Bible. You gotta realize that the Bible was written by a secret order of people who had secret spiritual knowledge. There's always been an upper class of individuals who wrote these texts, and they had esoteric knowledge that other people didn't have. That's why you consistently see the same images over and over again. That's why if you look in the ancient Egypt, there's a symbol called crest. What is crest? Crest was a symbol for a mummy. What is a mummy? A mummy is a body that's prepared for resurrection. It's a risen body. Then in India, you have Krishna. What is Krishna? Krishna is a divine God that became incarnated in human form. Then you have Christ. And then in Islam, you have Quraysh. What is Quraysh? Quraysh was the tribe that the Prophet Muhammad came from. And my theory is that there's one group of individuals who've been going from one place to another, spreading the spiritual knowledge that keeps getting misinterpreted and religified when people are trying to give you spiritual technology. And every time it gets religified, it becomes a religion, and they got to leave and they got to go somewhere else and start over. And I believe it started in ancient Kemet with their spiritual science. Then they took it to India. Keep in mind, Krishna was from a tribe called the Naga. Naga is actually an African word. It means king or noble. So they took that spiritual knowledge from ancient Egypt, which was African, took it over to India, to the Naga tribe. Krishna took that knowledge and disseminated it to the people. Then eventually the Greeks brought the knowledge from India over to Jerusalem. Keep in mind, Jesus Christ did study in ancient Egypt. Then from Christ, what happened? You got Kadesh. The Prophet Muhammad was a student of the teachings of the Bible. He knew Jewish individuals who were teachers of the book. They believed in the book, and he followed them. So this secret group been passing down the information from one group to another, trying to keep it pure, but it keeps getting religified. But that's just my theory. Let's go back to our regularly scheduled program. So after they beat Jesus Christ, they put him on trial. On trial for what? I mean, really, it's really not a clear answer. But you'll notice that it's pretty consistent across the board. When they put Bobby Seale, who was a Black Panther, they put him on trial. They didn't really charge him with anything. When they started locking up protesters in the 1960s, they really didn't have a mental diagnosis for why they were locking them up. They were locking them up and putting them in mental health facilities, and they were calling it protest psychosis. They were saying that Black people who were protesting against racism and violence and advocating for civil rights, that they were losing their minds. You don't really need a reason to destroy somebody. You can't publicly say, well, we're afraid of his ideas. But essentially, that's what they were saying. We're afraid of your ideas. We're going to kill you because we're scared of your ideas. And so they beat him and they whipped him. They forced a crown of thorns on his head. And then they took him outside, made him carry a cross, or a staros. Staros is not a cross. The image of the cross is once again a remnant of the secret society that taught the Christians about the resurrected deity. A staros is like a big wooden stake. It's not necessarily a cross, but the image of the cross came from ancient Egypt in the form of the Ankh. And then the Ankh got mixed in with the crucifix, and that became the symbol of the cross that we see nowadays. So they made him carry this big wooden stake all the way up to Mount Calvary, put it down, placed him on top of it, and let him stay up there for hours. And it took so long for him to die that they tried to hurry up and speed things up a little bit. So they stabbed him in the side. As they stabbed him in the side, there's a scripture that talks about how blood and vinegar came out of the side of his body, which is the result of the trauma that he was going through emotionally. He was going through such severe trauma that it was changing his biochemistry right in front of their eyes. And then he looked up at the sky, and he didn't say, God, kill these people. He didn't say, God, you should have destroyed them. He didn't even say, God, you should have saved me. He said, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. As you're an individual who's trying to introduce spiritual technology to your family, to your culture, to your friends, to your community, and they ignore you, they hate you, they attack you, they drag your name through the mud, you got to say, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. I used to work with kids in a drug rehab facility. Those kids have been so traumatized that they sometimes would get very aggressive. They would get triggered. They would want to fight. They would disrespect you. And I had to look at them and talk to them very calm and very respectfully because I wanted to calm them down. I wanted them to understand that I didn't pose a threat. And in my mind, sometimes I would have to say, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. I understood that because of the trauma and the pain that they went through, they were out of control. That fight or flight impulse had kicked in. And there were sometimes, I would get frustrated with them. I don't like people disrespecting me, just like you guys wouldn't like it. But I had to understand that they were not disrespecting me necessarily. They were individuals who were responding to years of trauma enforcement. Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do. And then Christ died. But what happens to that kind of a person? What happened to Martin Luther King? He was killed, he was crucified, but we still see his image. It's almost as if he's been resurrected because you see his image everywhere now. You hear his speeches on YouTube. You can go right on YouTube right now and listen to any Martin Luther King speech you want to. When you try to kill the idealist in order to kill the idea, quite often you make the idea more powerful. Same thing with Malcolm X. Same thing when they killed Huey P. Newton. So many of our revolutionaries were tortured and killed. So many people fighting, trying to do the right thing. They come back, and sometimes they return after death the same way Christ did. Martin Luther King was killed, but he came back from the dead in a sense. Legacy still lives on. Malcolm X, his legacy still lives on. It's like the brother has been resurrected. And in some instances, you look at an individual like the Dalai Lama. He didn't die, but they chased him from his homeland. He had to flee from Tibet and go to India, hide out in India, and then return to Tibet and was replaced as the Dalai Lama. And China didn't stop him. They couldn't stop him. When he came back, he was too damn powerful. He was too damn strong. He was too damn powerful. He held on to his spiritual principles, held on to his spiritual knowledge, didn't back down, didn't change, didn't flinch. He came back more powerful than ever. Shout out to the Dalai Lama. That's what happens. They come back. These ideas are too powerful because they've always existed in different forms. When they talk about God's reincarnating in human form, essentially what they're talking about is a concept from the collective unconscious. A concept from the collective unconscious, which is this big, being galvanized into one focal point of a human being. That's a lot of power. And when that power becomes manifest in the physical form, it can do almost anything. Even if you kill the person, their legacy will still live on. The idea will still live on. Even if the individuals who you try to save hurt you, your legacy will still live on. You might not be able to save that person you're trying to save, but you might be able to save their kids. They might take what you teach them and not even use it, but they might teach it to their sons and daughters. They might push you away, then 10 years from now come back like, man, I miss you. Come back into my life. I told you I don't ever want to see you again, but I realized it wasn't me. I wasn't ready to heal. Let's work things out. Can't kill an idea that powerful. You can't kill love that powerful. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. It's a powerful statement of love. You deciding to take it upon yourself to have these tough conversations. It's a statement of love. You deciding to go to an individual who hurt you or abused you and saying, I forgive you. Let's put the family back together. That's a profound statement of love. And I don't want you guys to gloss over that like it's not important. That is a monolithic testament of magnanimity. You got a big heart. Salute to you. Salute to anybody who put that burden on and said, I'm going to be the one to introduce the spiritual technology to save this family. I'm going to introduce therapy to these people who've never gone to therapy before. I'm going to be the one to say, let's set up a therapy appointments. Let's all get together as a family. I'm going to be the one to say, our grandmother's suffering, the family got to get together. We got to deal with this. I'm going to be the one to say, our uncle is drinking too much. Bring the family together. We have an intervention. I'm going to be the one to say, my little nephew's running the streets. We got to get him out of here before he hurts somebody or gets hurt. It's a testament of love to your love, and we appreciate you. We appreciate you here. The rest of the world might not appreciate your sacrifices, but we do. So that's the malady of the avatar. Understanding that you must die, trying to bargain your way out of it, dealing with the heavy burden and the anxiety of it, letting it almost break you down, deciding that instead of you asking for vengeance and asking for hatred and asking for complete and total isolation and separation from them, you can say, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do," and still give love. It's an incredible story. And I'm not religious at all, just so you know. But I just find that story to be valuable. I find all of these stories to be valuable. And that's why I shared this series with you guys, The Maladies of the Avatar. And hopefully they'll make it available to you guys again at some point on Inside Timer. Hopefully you guys will be able to go back and watch some of these. But I'm gonna wrap up now. We're almost at the 1 hour mark. Thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate it, Adele. Thank you. Thank you so much. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna wrap up now. Come back next week. I want to share something that came to me in the shower. There's a guy named Amit Goswami who believes in what he called quantum consciousness, where he believes that certain ideas can get downloaded from a quantum realm into your mind, and so you can get all these very interesting insights on the universe just from seemingly nowhere. And I had a moment where something came to me. So I'm just gonna share it with you guys. Because of what I believe, if what came to me is real and science proves that it's real, I want it on a record that I said it first. I had this whole revelation when I was in the shower about time travel and how the universe works and all that stuff. So I'm gonna share that with y'all next week. And if we have time, I'll break down some stuff about manifestation too. I gotta start focusing on that as well. But thank y'all so much for sharing this time and this space with me. This was a beautiful, beautiful blessing. I'm so happy to see you guys. I'm happy to be back. I'm sorry I was gone for like 2 weeks, but I had to rest up. I was a little burned out, but I feel good. I felt like I got my swagger back, and yeah, thank you so much once again for the donation. Anybody who wants to donate, your donations are greatly appreciated. Um, and yeah, I'll see you guys next week. I'm gonna shoot out now. Peace and blessings to all of y'all. I love y'all to life. I'm sending some positive energy out to you guys. Love y'all to life. I love y'all to death. I'm gonna see y'all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Wednesday night, 11:11. All right. Peace.